The coldest beer in town was born out of the fact that Mr. Dorsch liked beer, but he didn't like it a whole lot. The only time he really loved beer was when it was icy cold beer. And I'm talking, you know, frost on the glass and ice coming up out of the bottom of your beer. And Mr. Dorsch set me on a path to figure out a way to have the coldest beer in town and serve every single beer at darn near below freezing. We started out with a beer freezer instead of a beer cooler. And instead of holding our kegs at around 34, 36 degrees, we hold our kegs at 32 degrees. But it goes back even further than that. Before we even put the refrigeration unit in, we dug down nearly 4 feet in the ground, took back all the soil, and backfilled that with polystyrofoam insulation. And then we poured a concrete floor on top of that. Making sure the beer's cold in the cooler is the first place to start. And then most companies will take the beer lines and they'll run them over top of the ceiling and through the attic space. And it's about 140 degrees in the attic of most restaurants in Florida. So instead of taking the shortcut and going up through the ceiling and running them over to the beer, to the bars and bringing them back down, we ran our beer lines nearly 6 feet underground. And we ran it through PVC pipe. In addition to the beer lines, we added 5 lines of glycol supercoolant to run the entire length out to the taps. So it starts in a 32-degree freezer, it goes underground, it gets chilled down to about 28.5 degrees, and then it comes out in a frozen icy mug. And when it hits the table, man, it's absolutely the coldest beer in town. The beer companies will absolutely tell you to serve your beer somewhere between 34 and 38 degrees. And what that does is allows the carbon dioxide to escape, and people can drink more beers and not feel full. Well, at Mojo'd, we wanted a craveable beer, an ice cold beer that when you came in, you might drink 4 beers instead of 8 beers, but you know, you're gonna be talking about that beer when you go home. You're gonna be sharing it with your friends on a hot, sunny day, and you're gonna be talking about, let's get the coldest beer in town at Mojo'd's Wings, Burgers, and Beer. And I'd rather have talked about product and have people come back more often than come in one time and drink the same old beer that they can get anywhere, any restaurant. There's a secret to pouring the coldest beer in town. You know, you have to adjust the pressure on the beer kegs, and it's really a balance, because if you get the pressure too low, the beer will freeze in the lines. If you get the pressure too high, then it foams up in the glass. So you have to get the pressure right, and then you have to get the right tilt on it, and you have to get the right pull. And it's a skill. It's not just anyone walks up and just pours the coldest beer in town in a frozen mug. I mean, we've had girls complain and try to, you know, heat the mugs up by rubbing their hands on them or running water in them. And I'm gonna tell you, you just don't walk up and pour the coldest beer in town without having the right technique. I've had people challenge me. They say the only reason your beer is so cold is because you put it in a frozen mug. And I've taken a plastic Solo cup and I've poured a Michelob Ultra into a plastic Solo cup. And as I was handing the beer across the bar to the guy, little crystals of ice were floating up out of it. I mean, if it doesn't stay under pressure in the beer lines, as soon as it comes out, the beer's ready to freeze. It really is. And I'm telling you, it can't get any colder than it is. You know, I think it could be any day, any time. It's when you're out in that hot Florida sun. It's when you've had a long day. It's when you just want something that's really refreshing. It's when you want to know that you can go somewhere and they're going to deliver their promise and you're going to get the absolute coldest beer in town.